It's early morning on a Saturday. While many people in the Washington, D.C. region are sleeping, 21-year-old Eddie Sales is arriving at work. He has to get this downtown D.C. restaurant up and running by 8, and that means starting his day at 6 a.m. This 21-year-old Guatemalan immigrant is no stranger to hard work. He began working when he was 7 years old in his native country, so he could help his mother put food on the table. Eddie is one of the tens of thousands of unaccompanied Central American youth who've arrived in the Metro DC region over the past 4 years. He, like many others, was fleeing gang violence. He recalls the sense of isolation he felt when he arrived here, with no money and no clue about what to do.
Yo no sabía ni cómo empezar porque venía de un nuevo país. No.
I didn't know what I should do first because I was in this new country. I didn't know where to go, he says. Eddie enrolled in high school and began to learn English so he could get a high school diploma. He would get up very early to catch the school bus, and in his backpack, along with his books, a change of clothing so he could rush to work after school. The young immigrant needed to support himself because he had no adult guardians or caregivers to rely on.
Sí, era difícil, muy difícil, pero realmente porque yo quería luchar y salir adelante, entonces.
It was very difficult, it really was, but I wanted to fight and give myself a better life, he says. I needed to give myself motivation to get up every day and walk in the heat and cold to go to and from work. Sometimes I would jog or run and tell myself I was getting in shape, he recalls. Eddie also found motivation with his sister, Letty. She had also fled gang violence, arriving in our region a year before Eddie did. Together, the siblings pay for a tiny basement apartment where they share the same bedroom. They speak their native Mam language to one another and provide comfort and love in difficult times.
En lo, ¿cómo se dice? Emocional o
When it comes to the emotional part of my life, I feel there is someone standing by my side, so I don't feel so alone, he says. After 3 years of going to school and working until midnight, Eddie graduated from high school. Along the way, he found that there were people willing to help. Teachers, counselors, even community members who learned of his struggles and pitched in with school supplies, food, and clothes.
realmente me siento muy agradecido.
I am so very grateful to all those people and to God because He's put good people in my life, he says. Eddie's asylum application was also granted, earning him a coveted work permit. After graduating, he now has 3 jobs, 2 in restaurants and a part-time in construction. He chose not to go to college, at least for now, because the financial burden is too great for someone who has to support himself at a low-paying job.
Cuando salgo con la mochila,
Sometimes I'm tired and it's hard to put that backpack on and go to work day after day after day, he says, but adds, I remind myself that my life is much better now and that I have opportunities, and that motivates me. Eddie's story is in many ways similar to that of tens of thousands of Latino youth in our region. Some have overcome difficult circumstances, graduated from high school, and are now business owners, while others have been able to secure the money to go to college and are now working as counselors, social workers, and educators. The factors in their success are their individual hard work and being able to access a support network of family, friends, professionals, and organization.
puede ser un país de.
This country is like a double-edged sword. If you come here to work hard and struggle, you can make it if you can find opportunities and take advantage of them, he says. But warns you can also go under if you lose your way. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. How are you feeling? Good? Okay. Yeah, sometimes I feel like that. All right, so I guess the first thing I want to do is all of you came here to Montgomery County. All of you have individual stories. I'd like you to share with us a little bit about how you came here, what were the conditions that brought you here, and how difficult it was just to be here in the first place. And why don't we just start at the end with Karen?
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Venegas. So I'll start where I'll begin. I was 6 years old. I left Bogota, Colombia with my parents, and we arrived here in Maryland because we had family here already. Seeing Eddie's story really touches me because I feel like I never truly struggled. I feel very privileged, like Valeria said. I got on a plane and I was here, and I went to school in Montgomery County from first grade to 12th grade. And I never felt like there was something that I needed, there was something missing. My parents never, if they struggled, I never knew about it. And it was only for me that being undocumented became like this big thing in my life when I was going to apply to college, because throughout my time in Montgomery County Public Schools, I had been in the honors classes, gifted and talented program, AP, IB, everything. And so it was only when I had to take the next step and I realized I don't have a social security number did things start to, kind of be shaky for me. But I found that just like my parents, Montgomery County Public Schools, the teachers I had, the friends I had, everyone that was part of my support system really has contributed to the success I've had. And if I'm sitting on this stage, I owe it a lot to this county and to the people who have worked for it.
Thank you. Uh, Veronica, your story is a little different.
Yeah, so my name's Veronica, and I came here. Sorry, I came here when I was a baby. I was about 1.5, nearing 2 years old when I came here. My mom, I came here with my mom, just like Valeria. We came on a plane. My tia, she was the one who convinced my parents to come to the United States because she was already living here. She went through the ground to get here, and she told my mom about how much opportunity there was here. And so, because of how much violence was happening back at home and how much my parents were struggling, it was very, very poor. Both my parents worked a lot, had a lot of the times they weren't even there to raise me because of how much they were working. And with just so much issues and struggles, my mom decided I'm going to bring my daughter here to the United States so that she can have a better life. And so they were able to get visas, and we flew on a plane here. And until today, I didn't really know how much of a privilege that was to be able to actually get on that plane as a baby and fly over here. And since then, I lived in Montgomery County since I was 3 years old. Went to kindergarten, graduated high school last year. I'm currently at Montgomery College, um, doing my second year. I'm in the process of graduating with my associates in the next semester, and I'm going to transfer to the UMBC Shady Grove campus next year. And that wouldn't be possible without all these like aids and resources that I've had to help me along the way. With back in high school, that's when I really learned the struggles that I would have to go through. Growing up, I wasn't completely aware of the hardships that my status would bring me because I was a kid. It wasn't really a big thing for me to worry about. But my parents told me in high school, like, things are going to be harder for you and different, and you're going to have to work a lot harder than your peers because there are opportunities that they have that you won't be able to obtain. So I joined this program called ACES back in high school, and they've been with me since. And as a result, I've been able to join two other programs. Future Links is one of them, and also the Transfer Access Program, Raptor to Retriever, to help me continue on with my journey to college so that I can get my bachelor's.
Thank you. And Cynthia, your story now, which is yet more different.
The last, right? Um, my name is Cynthia Santos. I came to the United States when I was 15, and like he said, my story is a little more different. But the reality of a lot of people, which contrast um, what you know some of us know. I was a human trafficking child when I was 15. I was brought here, and I was one of those, victims. I came through the border in Texas. I swim here at 4 in the morning, and then I didn't even know where I was, to be honest. I think we stayed in or I stayed in Texas for about 6 months, I think, and then I came to Silver Spring. I didn't know it was Silver Spring until after I was fortunately courageous enough and brave enough to say, you know what, this is I'm not I'm this is not what I was made for. I knew that that was not my purpose, right? So I was rescued by Montgomery County Police, and then I was put in foster care, and I stayed in foster care for 4 years until I emancipated. Um, so I am a foster child too, uh, um, former foster child, and I stayed in foster care until I graduated from high school, and then 21 when it's the age we emancipate. Um,
Can you tell us a little bit about your family situation? Because you were not alone during these struggles.
um,
Tenías un hijo.
yeah, yeah, I had a child product of this situation I was living in. Just you can imagine. Derek is a United States citizen. He was, born here, in Holy Cross. I later found out that it was Holy Cross. And yeah, well,
So you had to not only look out for yourself, but for a newborn child, and have
mhm,
continued to do this for the last 10 years.
for the last 10 years, yeah. Just the other day, on November 6th, I am a very spiritual person. I have grew up to be very spiritual, but we have this mentality in Mexico where we don't trust politicians. We know that people are the government is corrupt, so we don't trust. It's like, why go out to vote? And I had that mentality, and we were talking about that earlier, where we experience reality the way we have experienced it ourselves, how we were brought up, what we were taught, and what we are fed. What we see. Um, and I always encourage donors and people who in the community to, if you want to really help, if you are putting out your money, do it with intention. And doing it with intention means you actually submerge yourself and go to those public schools. If they're telling you this stuff about public school, go there, check it out for yourself. For yourself, do it with intention. And that on November 6th, I I became a United States citizen in 2014, and I had never voted. I had the mentality: we don't trust politicians, we don't trust the government. Until I this is we're living in times that are everything is politics. Everything, you're watching a video and or something, and Trump comes up, for what? It's like you're watching some game video. It's like everything is there. But there's a reason for that. People are becoming conscious on how government affect us. And I was sitting uh, a couple of days before November 6th, and I was hit with the reality. Wait, I'm a mom, right? I have a kid in public school, and whatever laws are passed are going to be affecting um, Derek. And so I was hit with a completely different reality. Yes, government matters, and you have to go and see it for yourself, and for yourself, and see what happens. So I took my spiritual self that day to the polls, and I went and I voted. And I saw different complete young people, uh uh um
Old people?
old people, veterans, every it was really. And I was thinking earlier, if we came together, just like we do it in these conversations, um if we came together, imagine the changes that can be made, to systems that are no longer working. If at some point they were working, um, are no longer being efficient.
So Cynthia talks about systems because she's actually a programmer, a computer programmer. That's her new career, by the way. So, well, I think all of you touched upon the fact that Montgomery County did some good for you. The school system, the foster care
Hmm.
system, the college. But let's not talk about the things that work. Let's talk about the things you think didn't work and you think could work. I know we were talking about the fact that you felt that having TPS and not having a green card or having a not being a U.S. citizen or U.S. resident did not allow you to go to school either with in-state tuition rates or with any kind of financial aid from the federal government, but that there was very little help for you from the county and from the state. Even though we live in a supposedly liberal county that loves everybody, and we all sing kumbaya around our immigrant community, but yet you have a significant portion, 33% of kids who are immigrant and who may not have status, and they have to pay for college when we certainly see that they can't even afford to live. So tell me a little bit about that experience you were telling me about.
So, yeah, basically, like I mentioned earlier, when my parents told me when I got to high school, there's going to be some obstacles that I'm going to face that my classmates aren't going to. One of those obstacles is the fact that since I'm under TPS, that's temporary protected status that basically allows me to legally live and work here, but they can revoke it at any time and deport me at any time, as you can see that they're trying to do currently. And so, due to that status, I'm not considered a citizen. I'm not considered a resident. I'm kind of in a gray area, and it's a little. It's similar to DACA. It has its own differences, but we're basically in the same boat. We're in a gray area, and
You're a
so
resident. And how long have you lived in Montgomery County?
I have lived in Maryland in general.
Uh-huh.
I've lived in Maryland for 18 years.
And you're not considered a resident.
So, yeah, it was very frustrating because I basically grew up here. And even though I am an immigrant, I know there are other people's stories who were a lot different from mine. And it's just like, why do I have to go through these things? One of the biggest struggles was when I had to start applying to college and everything. And it was very, very difficult because one of the first questions they ask you is, are you a US citizen? And like my option, like I'm not in the options. I'm other. I'm not citizen, resident, nothing. I have to click the other and then I have to specify what I am. And sometimes that option isn't even there. And I received help from the program that I was in. I mentioned ACEs earlier. I applied to them back in my sophomore year and they helped me junior, senior year because as a first generational college student, my parents didn't know the system. And I knew I was going to be on my own. And I was very well aware that when I got to college, I was going to pay for it myself. So I was grateful that I had them aiding me. But at the same time, it really, really sucked because all my classmates around me, people were applying to college and applying to all these scholarships, and they had all these things coming to them. And I'm right here and I'm trying to find a scholarship that's willing to accept me, but a lot of them are just like even Hispanic scholarships, like the Hispanic gala, there's this Hispanic scholarship. A lot of them are like, you need to be a US citizen or resident, which really infuriated me because I'm just like, if this scholarship is directed towards my demographic, I don't understand why they don't understand a lot of the situations that we're in.
Hello.
And it was just infuriating. And so, yeah, that's just one of the biggest obstacles that it still pisses me off to this day. Sorry for that word.
You can be
But
pissed off. It's okay.
yeah, it was just infuriating. And then like I had classmates and people who were so close to me where it's just like, you guys are citizens. You guys were born here and you guys aren't taking advantage of that opportunity. You guys aren't either doing the FAFSA correctly or you guys aren't like pushing yourselves to apply to these great 4 years that I know you guys are capable of. And I know everybody has a different situation and story, but as somebody who was at who had that extreme disadvantage, knowing that colleges, they wouldn't see me as an in-state, in-county student. They would see me as an international student. So if I applied to a school, I wouldn't get that in-state tuition. Instead of paying like 28 grand, I'd have to pay like 50, nearly 60, depending on the school I wanted to go to. and it was very hard as a
Thank,
result.
thank you. Karen, we know the things that worked for you. What pissed you off?
So I'm trying to reflect, and I want to say that there was something that really pissed me off, but I can't find one.
That's okay. You're entitled to be happy too.
Thank you.
We like happiness also.
I think that if the greatest thing that I learned, and granted, I always knew, like in the back of my head, that I was undocumented. As a child, it never mattered. So that was good because it wasn't like this big surprise that suddenly changed my life, like it can happen to some students. Um, However, I do think that it was at coming out time. It was junior, senior year, and I knew what was going on. My parents knew. College wasn't a question. I was going to college. It was just a matter of how am I going to get there. But I couldn't do it on my own. It felt like I was swimming against a current where all of my friends who had been in the IB classes with me, the AP classes, we had these like huge dreams for college. And suddenly everyone's asking me, where are you applying? And I don't really know because at that time, the Maryland Dream Act wasn't a thing. At that time, DACA wasn't a thing. Um, it was still very much a time where, can I say I'm undocumented or should I just keep it to myself? So it was self discovery time for me and learning to choose who I could share this with and being smart about it and knowing that I would have people to support me and who would help me navigate the systems that I needed to get there. So if I can say something here is if you can take this back to any undocumented students that you know, dreamers, DACA students, is to make sure that they use their voices and share it with others. Because once I did that, it was like the burden of the world was taken off my shoulders. I knew my teachers wanted to help me, my friends, and suddenly I wasn't swimming against the current. Suddenly I felt like the system is also going to work for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Cynthia, anything that made you angry? Anything that you think could have worked better that didn't work?
Um, when I
Use the mic.
yeah, when I was telling you about the high school experience when I was placed in ESOL, and this is one example of many, many, many systems that are not working. The intention was right. The intention was, um, in the right, um,
It was right.
it was real. And it worked maybe for some time, and it's not longer working. And that's a reality
Why?
because when I was placed in ESOL, the school that I was attending, it was really, the entire school was just messy, there was a lot of and plus it's like it doesn't allow you to step out of that comfort zone. Everybody spoke Spanish there. Everybody spoke Spanish there, and even the teachers, everybody spoke Spanish. And the ESOL program was so you learn English, but everybody spoke Spanish. So
When did you learn English? What happened that made you learn English?
I was thankfully by my social worker pulled out of that school because I was really, it wasn't working for me, and I was placed in the institution I was in the group home that I was in. They had the teachers coming to us and teaching us, and that's how in less than a year, I was speaking English, and I basically I had to. I had to, and I graduated from high school with 4.0 and with honors and all this stuff, because we refocus, the intention, the idea, and I see now that the unfortunately the ESOL program is being taken advantage of for fun. Schools, unfortunately, I see it that way. Derek, my son Derek, I am Derek. Uh, they refer him to ESOL. Derek is an we speak English. That's all we speak. He speaks Spanish very well, but his native language is English. That's what he
What's
speaks.
happening, what Cynthia is talking about is the fact that in some school systems, if your child has a Spanish surname and if he comes from a Spanish-speaking family, they will automatically put him in an
Mhm.
ESL class, and the child has to prove that he can function in English before he's taken out. And I think you were also telling me that you were in a class like that, even though you said, I speak English, why am I here? And that sometimes sets the kids back in their ability to educate, to become fluent and mainstreamed in an actual English speaking class. And we're talking about kids that are born here, right? I mean, that's what we're talking. We're talking about kids that are born here that were a year old, 2 years old. We're not talking about the kids that are coming in from El Salvador or well, mostly from El Salvador, but Honduras, Guatemala, who don't speak any English and don't come from an English speaking household. So, how was that for you?
Oh, so yeah, like I mentioned before, I came here very, very young. And so when I did start school, they put me into ESOL. I didn't know it at the time. I just thought I was like in some reading program. I had no idea it was a special program separated from my classmates. I do remember moments though where this was like preschool, I can say, where me and like other kids who were in that ESOL program, we were like forced to sit down during like lunchtime and playtime and everything. We weren't allowed to have any breaks. We were like forced to like sit and learn and like practice like English and everything. And I was just like, I don't understand why. And I would look at like my um, American classmates who weren't in that program, and they were playing games and they were reading books and they were doing whatever they wanted. And I would ask the teacher, I was just like, why am I not allowed to play? Like I want to go play. And they were just like, no, you have to do this. And I'm just like, but why? And they kept me in ESOL until I was like in the third grade. And I remember when they tested me, they were just like, your reading is so advanced, like it's at a seventh grade level. And so they took me out of ESOL. And in fourth grade, I finally, I guess it was English, but I missed so much information those first like couple of years. I didn't know like proper punctuation, grammar. I had no idea what commas were, like nouns, verbs, all that stuff. The teacher was talking about that and she was like, what's a noun? Everybody responded. What's a verb? Everybody responded. I had no idea what that was. And I actually didn't really learn it until I got to high school, maybe when I did AP literature and composition. And even then, to this day, I'm not really too familiar with those type of like conjugations and everything. I took AP literature and composition, AP language and composition, and I still don't know because growing up, I wasn't allowed to learn it. They were just like, you have to learn what cat means and what tree means. And I was just like, I know this stuff. I know this stuff in two languages. I don't need this. But they said otherwise. So.
Thank you. I want to ask all three of you a question. Do you know, have you heard the term chanchi?
Challenge.
Chanchi.
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 Cholo, chanchi.
Oh,
Have you heard
cholo.
this word
Or
chanchi?
chancla.
So I did a piece about the term chanchi, which is a derogatory term that is used in Montgomery County public schools among students to describe Latino immigrant children. And you laughed because
Yeah.
you've heard it. And and it was coined by immigrant kids, by Latino kids who were not immigrants. So there are discrimination levels within the community that we also need to be aware of, because you have kids that are singled out because they just got here and they dress differently and they use Facebook, not Instagram or Snapchat, and they don't have an Apple phone, and there's all levels of discrimination. Did you feel any level of discrimination at all when you were in school? Did you participate in it?
Um, well, there's a lot I can say in regards to that. Just to summarize, like, I did face some discrimination from that, and I'm pretty sure there were times where I enacted in that as well. Growing up, I knew the word chantry, but I wasn't too familiar with it. I thought it was just what people would use to refer to Hispanics, so that's what I would just use.
Means pig.
Yeah.
Means little pig.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but as I got older, I became aware of the term, and I realized like there were many moments in school that that should have been offensive to me, but I just wasn't aware of it. I remember a moment in middle school that you brought that up. I was like I was taking a Spanish class because I needed a foreign language credit, and my my classmates, they were always joking around, right? And there are these two classmates, they're American, and they were like asking like the Hispanic students, because it was just me and like another girl who actually knew Spanish. They were just like, "Do you guys have your green card?" Like, "Oh no, you guys are like Chanchis and everything. Like, why are you guys even here?" And like I remember like situations like that. And at the time I was just like, I didn't even know what a green card was. I was just like, I don't have one. I don't Why would I need one? They're like, "You're not from here." So Chanchy. And so those were like those were like experiences that I had that where at the time it was like more confusing, where I was just like, what is this? But now it's more just like, now that I'm more aware and like experienced, I'm just like, wow, I really did face like stuff like that. And that's just one situation that I'll mention.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Final words from each one of you about if there's anything you want everybody in this audience or anybody in this audience to take away, what would be the final thing that you would like them to remember, that you would like to give them and leave with them? Just give me about 30 seconds, and we'll start on the end.
I told this to Carrie when we spoke. I think that we need to celebrate and share more the success stories right now in the political moment that we live in. All we hear is immigration, ICE, border, all of these very soul wrenching stories. And I understand that is the reality. I'm not going to pretend that it's not happening. But I do think that we need to uplift the stories of the people who have gone through these things and have persevered and gotten through them. If we know anything about the immigrant experience, it is perseverance, and we need to ensure that we as a county do not forget that.
Thank you. Cynthia.
Um, Definitely, misinformation can cause a lot of these ideas. I didn't know about that term, that word, and um, and if I have heard, it was I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know that it is, but let's not focus so much on this type of things, although there are realities. We can change among our community by starting to change ourselves. And how we're going to change ourselves? Inform ourselves. And definitely I think the media has a great a responsibility to promote more of the success stories, and among every community, not only in the Latino community but other communities. Like we were saying earlier. Well, Americans might not be watching Telemundo where you're presenting those stories.
They're not. Karen. I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh,
Veronica.
there's just so much going on, and I really hope that's really what a lot of people can do. I just wish that there was some type of change. I guess the most that people can learn to take from this is to understand that um, everybody has a different background and different story and everything like that. But at the end of the day, like, we're all people. Like, if you look at it scientifically, we all have some type of genetic relationship. And at the same time, it's just everybody needs to understand the privilege that they hold. Everybody holds some type of privilege in one way, shape, or form. And even if intersectionality comes into play, like, understand that you may have an opportunity to help other people. If you're willing to help other people, I'd say like the first thing that we could do is like try to help programs that are willing to put in the time, the effort, the money, blood, sweat, and tears to actually help people who are in these like struggling situations, like people like me and people like Cynthia and Karen. I'm sorry. There's so much happening, and I just wish people could understand that we're all basically human. We hear that a lot, but if you really want something to happen, you need to actually act upon that, and you need to actually do that. If that means going to vote, if that means donating money, if that means raising awareness, or even just like clicking retweet or repost or something, or like even confronting the person next to you if they're saying something ignorant, and inform them and let them know, hey, that's not okay, that's not something you should say, that's not something you should do, you need to understand this before you talk about it. There's so much that can be said and done, but nothing will really happen until people actually act on it and are brave enough to say, like, something needs to happen, and that change can start with me if I'm willing to actually do it.
Well, it was a privilege for me to be here on the stage with all three of you ladies. Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause for their comments. Thank you.